We are back in the garage. Since I got the thing down on all of its wheels, I moved everything around a bit. Still got to clean off that workbench over there. It needs a serious reset. Well, what I'm working on right now is building the rudder. I got messing around last night and I built the 2 rudder hinges, which are just built out of 60/61 1/8" aluminum angle. Nothing real complex about them. Now I need to build some doubler plates to go behind them. Take this sheet of aluminum here, cut a strip off, bend it into a U-shaped piece. That will be like the rib for the rudder where the hinges go. Now I need to set up the guard on the bandsaw and rip off about a 4-inch strip of this 20,000 60/61. Okay, I bent the spar that goes on the rudder. Now, I used the metal brake. Easy to do. Now, I've said this before, the brake makes things a lot easier. When I built the same spar for the vertical fin, I used alternative methods, and while I got it bent and it looks good, it was so much easier with the metal brake. So much easier and quicker. Okay, the top hinge is going on good. Got the doubler in there, cleat coat in place. Now we just need to bolt the hinge in and then rivet it together with some type 2 rivets. All right, we got the rudder spar on there. Turns like it should. Now this is apparently the way the original hinge setup was. There was listed as an option to put like oil light bushings in there. But I think what I'm going to do is just run it like this, keep it lubricated. If it gives me any problems in the future, then I'll take it off and then I'll put some bushings in it. All right, we got the sheet of aluminum here, rough cut to size for the rudder skin. Now the plans have really good dimensions and everything to cut out the shape of the rudder skin. So the first thing I've marked is the center line of the sheet, which will end up being the bend line for the back edge of it. And right now it showed where the bottom edges come up. It showed a 165-degree angle. So 165 or 180 minus 165 is 15. 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. So we need like a 7.5-degree angle coming from the center, going out on both sides. So I'll mark that and then we'll go from there. Okay, we've got the lines for the 7.5-degree angle. Mark the proper distance out from each one of them. Now we need to go back up at a 92-degree angle, both sides. Right, I've got all the lines drawn now. Like I said, this is supposed to be a 92-degree angle there, and I must have got it off just a little bit because this outside line was the first line I drew. Brought it to the center at a 90-degree angle up at that corner. Brought them to the center, but it also gave you the dimension here. This side was right on the money. This side was just a touch long. So I rechecked and I was just a little off on the angle down there. So we're going to cut it on this inside line. But that measurement is correct now. Both of these are correct. So should come out pretty good. They're pretty close. So I'll trim around all that and then we can go to bending it. Oh, and we also have to cut some notches, top and bottom, to be able to access the hinge. Okay, I made a couple more lines on it. This line here should be the front of the spar. So the rivet line will be just slightly behind that. And this extra here is there's 2 options in the plans. One is to roll these and overlap the pieces. And then the other option is just to angle them in. As you can see, that's like 2 3/4 inches there. If you just go with the angled and don't overlap them, that only needs to be 1.25 inches. And since we're going for ultra lightweight, I'm going to cut that off. Save a little extra weight there. I didn't realize how shallow, or I didn't look at the dimensions because they're on separate pages on how far that is, and realized how much overlap we had. But I'm going to cut that down, save a little weight there, and it'll be easier rolling it and trying to overlap the ends looks like a pain. Just putting a little bit of a bend in it looks pretty easy. It now has the notches cut for the hinge access, and it's got the holes drilled. 1 inch spacing along the hinge access, and then 2 inch the rest of the way around. Now I know when I put there'll be some top and bottom caps that go on there that need drilled, but we'll do that after I get it bent. So right now, put it in the bender and make it look like a rudder. Looks good so far. Everything seemed to line up good. Just bent it right on that mark that I've been using as the center line the whole time. So now I'll grab the spar off the back of the plane and start fastening it on. Okay, I put a line down the spar in the center so I know where to put the holes. Got a cleco on that end in the first hole, lined it up all the way down, got it lightly clamped there. So I'll just go back to this end and start drilling and cleco and working my way down. Do the same on the other side. Well, no problem so far. It looks suspiciously like a rudder. Right now, I'm going to go in and mark that line right there on both sides, and I'll take the clecos back out and I'll bend these up slightly, or bend them toward the center slightly like it said. And this is the part where it could have been totally rounded, and that just seemed like a lot of work. So I'll bend these up toward the center, and then we'll put the clecos back in and hang it on the airframe. And on this second side, when I was drilling it, I did a little different. The first side, I drilled one end, lined up the line, clamped the other side, and then worked from one end to the other, drilling, keeping it flat. So when I folded it around, I squared everything up, got it where it was all looking right, drilled one hole in the center, and then clamped both ends and worked from the center out. And that worked good, keeping everything squared up. And there's what that looks like. If the other design, it would completely overlap and roll around. That should work just great, and a whole lot easier. And just like that, we have a moving part. I like it. I don't see anything wrong with it. Looks pretty good to me. Just need to cap the top and bottom next. So I'll go cut some pieces out for that. Okay, we're working on capping the top and bottom of the rudder right now. And what I did is laid a piece of paper on top of that, did a finger tracing. Took that, laid it on the piece of aluminum, used a center punch, hit the corners, and then I didn't use this one because I got a little too close to the edge of it. Then went out another 1/2 inch for the overlap, cut that out, then trimmed the corners and across the nose, and then folded the edges down. A little bit of trimming to get it to fit in there just right, and should be ready to put some rivets in, or drill some holes at least. Okay, the top piece is clecoed in there. I think since I've got everything so far deburred and everything, I'm going to go ahead and rivet everything that you see together before I put the bottom piece in, just because it's irritating to have to deal with all these clecos. Okay, we've got the top on there. All the rivets are in on both sides. That made it much lighter. No big surprise, because that was a lot of clecos. So now, just got to cap the bottom. We'll do it the same way as the top, because that worked out pretty good. The only difference is where the skin and the top piece are 16 thousandths aluminum. The bottom piece is 40 thousandths, because the rudder drive assembly will rivet into it, so it's a little bit thicker material. So now all I gotta do is dig around here and find a piece of 40 thousandths. All right, the bottom piece is on. The only thing I didn't like was the tab here. It didn't line up quite right, so I cut it off, just bent a new piece of material, put the rivets on the back side here. When I fasten on the rudder drive, it will rivet through like this, so it'll hold it all together. Well, that was the only issue. Otherwise, it looks pretty good. That's why I didn't want to rebuild the whole piece, because the rest of it just looks so good and fits so well. But all right, I'm going to leave these with clecos because I will be drilling into this bottom piece to put that drive assembly on, and I want to be able to deburr it on the inside. All right, there it is installed. Looks pretty sharp. Next video we'll be building the rudder drive assembly. Left these with Clecos because I'll be drilling into that bottom plate. Want to deburr it. But this tube is already in there and goes up to my rudder pedals, so we should be able to hook all that up. So that should be next up. As always, thanks for watching and catch you on the next one.